Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dig into the gears, guts, and glorious chaos behind history's biggest game changers. Today's armored question comes from one of our battlefield-brained viewers, Tuner Marbleeye 78. You asked, why is the T-34 Russian tank considered the best in World War II? If you've ever watched a war documentary, played Company of Heroes, or just love machines that rumble like thunder, you've definitely heard the hype around the T-34. But what made it so iconic? Why do historians still nerd out over it? Today, we're breaking down the tank that turned the tide, from its slick design to why it scared the treads off German Panzer crews. Strap in, because this isn't just a history lesson, it's a steel-plated legend, right here on Explaining Everything. The T-34 wasn't just another tank, it was a revolution on tracks. Introduced in 1940, the T-34 featured sloped armor, which made enemy rounds bounce off like ping-pong balls instead of punching through. This design was so good, other nations copied it for years after. It also had wide tracks, allowing it to move like a snowmobile across the icy, muddy terrain of Russia, while German tanks got stuck spinning in place. The armor was thick, but the tank was surprisingly fast, like a heavyweight boxer doing parkour. It was also relatively easy to repair in the field, which meant more tanks stayed in the fight instead of waiting for a mechanic in a warm garage. In short, it had brains and brawn, and looked good doing it too. When the Germans first encountered the T-34 in 1941, they basically went, "Wait, they have that?" Most German tanks at the time, like the Panzer III, were no match. Their shells literally bounced off the T-34's armor like angry peas. The T-34 could hit hard, move fast, and take a punch, all while surviving the brutal Russian winters that made other machines freeze up like bad Wi-Fi. Its 76.2mm main gun packed enough firepower to take out enemy armor and bunkers without breaking a sweat. German commanders were so shocked they launched entire design overhauls to create something that could compete. Enter the Tiger and Panther tanks, which were great, but took longer to build and cost way more. The T-34. It just kept rolling, efficient, deadly, and stubborn as a bear in a blizzard. One of the T-34's biggest superpowers: quantity. The Soviets cranked these out like they were baking wartime cookies. More than 57,000 were built during World War II alone. Factories were simplified to make production easier. If a part didn't need polishing, they skipped it. If it worked with a wrench and hope, that was good enough. This meant T-34s could be replaced faster than the enemy could knock them out, which is pretty terrifying if you're on the receiving end. Sure, some crews had to fight in tanks that still smelled like factory paint. But when you're outnumbered 5-1 by angry Soviet steel, paint fumes are the least of your worries. And because parts were interchangeable, field repairs were quicker than a pit stop at a racetrack. Mass production didn't just make the T-34 common, it made it legendary. The T-34 didn't stay frozen in 1940 specs. It got smarter, stronger, and meaner. By 1943, the T-34/85 hit the scene with a bigger 85mm gun, thicker armor, and a roomier turret so crews could actually turn their heads without elbowing each other. This upgrade made it competitive even against German Tigers, which were more powerful but also weighed as much as a small moon. The improved firepower meant the T-34 could finally go toe-to-toe with elite Axis tanks and win, especially with multiple units swarming one target. And despite upgrades, it stayed cheap and fast to produce. A rare combo in military tech. It was like your favorite RPG character that keeps leveling up without becoming slow or expensive to maintain. The Eastern Front was a meat grinder, cold, brutal, and utterly massive. The T-34 was the steel backbone of the Soviet resistance. From Stalingrad to Kursk, these tanks formed wave after wave of counterattacks, often charging into battle like angry refrigerators with attitude. At the Battle of Kursk, the largest tank battle in history, thousands of T-34s clashed with German forces in a roaring metal thunderstorm. Their sheer numbers, durability, and flexibility helped push back the German invasion, turning the tide of the entire war in the East. And let's not forget the symbolism. The T-34 became a patriotic icon, proof that Soviet industry and grit could outmatch even the best German engineering. It wasn't just a machine, it was a message. You will not pass. So, why is the T-34 considered the best tank of World War II? Because it was fast, tough, smartly designed, easy to build, and showed up in numbers that made enemy commanders sweat through their uniforms. It didn't win because it was the most powerful. It won because it was the most practical, the most adaptable, and the most relentless tank of the war. In a battle between perfection and efficiency, the T-34 proved that sometimes being good enough, thousands of times, is how you win history. And let's be honest, if your tank design still gets love 80 years later, you clearly did something right. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.